Hey everyone, I'm Carolyn,
And I'm Davy.
and we're just two Asian women having candid conversations about whatever the hell we want to talk about with an intersectional flair.
That being said, today we're going to talk about belonging, feeling unbelonged, and when to leave. So get comfy and stick around.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Just Two Asian Women podcast. Again, my name is Carolyn. I'm Laotian American. I'm from San Diego, and I just got my second COVID shot today. I
Yay!
know, I'm so happy.
Are you a Moderna or a Pfizer
I'm a
person?
Moderna gal.
For sure.
Yes.
She said Moderna.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everybody. My name's Davi, and I'm from Long Beach, Cambodian American. And today I learned about HSAs. I'm taking a finance class, so having fun with that. And tomorrow's payday, so I'm just excited. For money.
Yes.
Yes.
Love payday.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're going to talk about belongingness, feeling like you don't belong or unbelonged, as we've coined recently,
Yes.
and what to do when you're in that situation. Because I feel like we've all been in a situation where we've been like ostracized for a reason that is unknown and beyond us. And we're like, what do I do?
We want to talk about belonging because it's such an integral part of our lives. And I feel like sometimes it's overlooked because maybe our social structures are already, created in our lives. But sometimes belonging in different groups, whether it's at work, at home, even, or with friends, is sometimes hard to navigate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I love the psychology behind everything. So I was looking up some articles, and in general, belonging is really important to our health and our survival,
Yeah.
especially back then when we were more in tribes. We can claim and argue that it was evolutionary because if you're in a tribe, you have people who can help gather food, you can reproduce, and
Mm-hmm.
you're protected from, animals, or if you guys have a big group, you can create shelter and survive longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's evolved into the 21st century now as well, especially with everything being online. There's actually an inverse relation, even though that we're digitally and virtually connected. Americans at least feel the loneliest they've ever felt.
That's interesting. I wonder if it's because people feel like uh there's like a cognitive dissonance between how much we consume like other people's lives and also um something about like us always shouting into the void on social media, and
Yeah,
we feel like that's enough, but then it's not, you know what I mean?
right. I agree. Especially, for example, looking at someone's story, your friends or family story, and you pretty much know what's partially what's going on in their lives, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I remember when I used to post my story, I would see my cousins and be like, "Hey, Dobby, what's up?" Like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing well. I just did this." And they're like, "Oh yeah, you went to the park last week and you went bowling. You did this and that." I'm like, "Oh wait, we can't even really have a conversation that because they know exactly what I'm doing." So, you know.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree with you because we're checking up on each other more. It seems like we are connected, but it's more superficial and it's
Hmm.
not really like deep connection, you know.
Right.
So sometimes I wanna omit what I do, therefore I can, like, actually talk about it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another way it's evolved too is capital punishment.
Hmm.
Prisoners and warfare, they know how to get you. They know that we're social creatures and that they'll take you into solitary confinement, and I think there's also research that shows that if a person feels lonely, that it actually shortens their lives.
Yeah.
So it's actually can be very pretty deadly as well.
Yeah, that makes sense because I mean, I think when you're lonely, you're just like more stressed about things, you know?
Yes.
Like if you don't have anyone with you, who's gonna come into your life and like make it easy for you once in a while, you know?
No,
When you
I
have to do everything yourself, and no one's ever done anything by themselves ever in the history of humans.
yes, exactly. It does tie in with health. It's very correlated because people in our lives, well, good people, help us out and we rely on other people for some things,
Hmm.
even though America is very individualistic.
Yeah.
Uh, we cannot deny that we need other people in our lives, you know?
Yeah.
So having nobody and feeling isolated, that's really stressful because, hey, can you help me, make dinner or have your back. That's why to me, I don't understand people who isolate themselves in Alaska in a cabin
Mhm.
and feel fine.
Fine. Maybe that's a stretch of a word.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know. Maybe they're just rich and everything works out perfectly fine.
Yeah, or maybe something in their brain, they don't need as much social interaction as other people.
Yeah, maybe they're like psychopaths.
Right, that's what I thought. Maybe they're like sociopaths, and
Yeah,
they just that part of their brain, they are not as hurt as we are when we're lonely. They're just neutral or chilling.
right. And honestly, love that for them.
Me too. Do you, boo? As long as you're like not hurting us in your
Exactly.
cabin,
Right, right.
do it. Living sustainably. I imagine they're out there fishing in the ice.
Right, like totally self-sustained. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, not to be cliche, but I mean, like, literally, we are social creatures, and all of those like little, even if you don't like have a lot of like close friends, like even those little low risk interactions with
Oh,
people, like
okay.
when you're talking to like the barista that you see right before work, or when you talk to the neighbor that you pass when you're walking your dog at that one time.
Yes.
Even all those little interactions make you feel like significantly happier, you know what I mean? And even though they're not literally anything to you, they're not your friend, barely an acquaintance. Um, but I think it just goes to show like that those little interactions make you feel like you belong in your community.
Absolutely. And we can get into that too and how belonging, you know, affects our community or how belonging in a community affects us. I agree, for example, like a low risk example is going to Starbucks and they're really good. They get your name so that you feel all special. And
Yeah.
if you go there daily, I'm sure you're like, oh yeah, the barista knows my order. People feel so proud about that. Not
Yeah.
not because they're caffeine addicts, but I think because they've built a relation with somebody and like, oh, they know me.
Yeah,
Especially if you live in a
exactly.
city, and you don't know anybody besides the people close to
Exactly.
you.
So it's when I was a barista, I remember like a handful of customers who'd come in, always get the same thing. And, it was nice for me too, because I'm all like, oh my God, it's that person again. I know them, you
Yeah,
know?
some consistency. All these little examples really show how important it is to our health and to our well-being and our mental health to have these types of relationships, whether it's low-risk relationships or high-risk relationships. The next topic we want to go to is talking about, when do we not feel belonged and when we decided to leave? Carolyn,
Hmm.
do you have any stories for us today?
Yes, I have a lot of stories, but I'll
Yay.
just keep it
But
down to
not
two.
yay. Because
Yeah, it's like I remember God feeling like you're being ostracized or like you don't belong somewhere is like the weirdest feeling because you're like, especially if you don't know what you've done. Uh
can't imagine. Yeah. What
so
the
it's like what? Um I remember this one time, and it's always happened in like a professional setting, which makes it even more awkward because I'm like, well, I can't go now. I gotta finish my fucking hours.
No.
Or I gotta like keep this job so I could make money. One instance I remember I had this internship and I don't know what was my supervisor's deal. There's this other intern that would work a shift with me and the supervisor, and no hate towards the other intern, like they're just doing their thing and it's totally fine. Um, my supervisor, I've worked or I had the internship for many months now, and they've never made like an effort to talk to me.
Mhm.
Though I've tried to talk to them, they don't want to talk. Okay, fine, cute.
Mhm.
Um, one time we were in like the indoor office workspace together, and it was just me and my supervisor. My supervisor was like, so how's finals going? And in my head, I was like, oh my God, my supervisor has literally never asked me any type of question about myself. Like maybe they're actually interested in hearing about my life and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. I go on. And then the other intern walks into the room and like dead ass, the supervisor literally just like pivots from me to look at the other intern. And then my supervisor was like, "Hey, other intern, what's going on? How is the blah blah blah?"
Uh-huh.
And they just started full on having like a separate conversation. And I was like mid sentence.
Oh,
And I was like, blah blah blah. And I'm
that's so
like,
disrespectful.
I was so I felt so gross. I was like, oh my God, like, am I supposed I should have called them out. Like, fuck it. Like, I'm not gonna have the internship forever.
Right.
Fuck no, they're not gonna be my reference. I hate them. Um, so but at the time I just felt very awkward. So I was just like, it just trailed off my sentence, and I was like, is this actually happening right now? Did they literally just start talking in front of me?
Right.
That was actually at like a an internship related to like animals, and that experience has like soured me so much. I'm like, why do people who care for animals so much are fucking awkward as hell, like actively you know what
No, I feel you. Like they love animals, but they have such bad social intelligence.
I know, and I'm like, no wonder you work with fucking animals, because anyone else would give you the finger, you fucking
Right?
asshole.
Exactly. Because like they can only relate to an animal that doesn't speak to them and listens to them. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine a human who's more has
Ugh,
more complex thoughts. Like it's just
I
so
know.
bizarre.
Oh,
I agree. I had someone like that when I was living in the dorms. Like they loved
uh,
animals, but they were so they had such a harsh exterior, and I was just like, "What?"
that's like my controversial opinion. People who work like heavily in the animal field or environmental field, I'm like, okay, good
I
for
think they're
you.
just like not used to talking. They're used to meowing or barking.
And like anybody who is in the environmental or animal field, like if it doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply to you. But if the shoe fits, we got a problem.
Right. I bet your coworker though, not you,
Yeah.
coworker or your supervisor.
hmm And um, I mean, that was just like the zenith of my experience at the dumbass internship.
Hmm.
But overall, I never felt like um I belonged there, because my other supervisors like literally would never talk to me, except for one. But they sorry, this is a little bit of tea now. Except for one supervisor out of like four or three total, but like literally all the other supervisors did not like the one supervisor who was nice to me.
Aw.
It was I feel bad for her, honestly. I could tell she was getting ostracized too.
Oh my gosh, there's so many ostracizing on so many levels. You're like, it happens everywhere.
I know, even on the supervisor level, like she already made her way to the top, allegedly, but they're still like, fuck you.
Wow.
So I mean, I guess it just goes to show like nothing you could do will prove um that you're worthy of respect.
It's sad that it happened on both levels, like at the internship level and the supervisor level. And you said there's only 4 supervisors, right? So
Mhm.
those 3 people, I don't want to speculate, but it's just interesting how even though it's such a small group, the group dynamic really determines how they outcast somebody else. And I think it's so fucked up.
Yeah, I agree. But
Yeah.
people love forming cliques.
No, so true. Especially I thought about my next story that I realized not that I was super ostracized, but I just know I didn't feel like was belonging.
Yeah, I think I remember like one random classmate of mine said it best, that it's so awkward to try to penetrate an established group.
Is true because we don't get to determine whether we fit in, they do.
Yeah, and it's like you could keep trying, but don't try too hard, you know?
Right, exactly, like, introduce yourself, but
Oh,
then don't keep on getting yourself in there, and that's what happened to me. I just thought about the experience I had when I was residential advisor in the dorms, or an RA for short. I had a group of other RAs, and they were nice, they were fine, and it's just don't you ever, like, get the feeling like, "Okay, these people will not be my long-term friends."
yeah.
Yeah, we will not be friends outside of work, and I they were all social. I mean, we're RAs, right? So we got hired. We have to be socially intelligent, but we also had cliques, and I think the cliques formed really quickly and formed really hard.
Mhm.
Some of the friends who were inseparable would just I don't know, I just felt like it was a little bit obnoxiously like, "Yeah, we're friends. Ha 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 ha." We all well, they didn't mean to, obviously, but you can just tell they always hung out with each other. After meetings, they would stay with each other. And I agree, it just felt like I couldn't get in with the group, you know? And I had a suspicion that people didn't like me for whatever reason. We have mailboxes, and I checked my mailbox, and then I had a note that said, "Oh, you're so annoying." You know? And I
Okay.
was like, "Oh, my suspicions were true." Um, and I was really hurt by that because we live with each other. I have to live with you all. We have to work with each other. We had to be collaborative, and I haven't done anything wrong in my eyes to warrant that. That's just bullying.
It's literally bullying.
Yes. And I was pissed. Um, on the next staff meeting, I brought it up. I didn't
Oh,
go
good, as
I
you
didn't go,
should.
"Fuck." I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we're 20 and you're sending notes, anonymous notes, criticizing people?" It's not even criticizing, it's insulting people.
Yeah.
I was so upset because, again, like, why would you do that? Like, just keep your thoughts to yourself. Like, people can just be so mean even though it's a joke. I brought it up in the meeting. I was like, "Hey, I had a note that said you're annoying. Like, this is really unprofessional. I wish whoever did this didn't do it, and I really hope you stop doing this because it makes people feel bad about themselves." Years later, the person actually called me and was like, "Hey, um, I did that."
Okay.
And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "It was a joke." And I said, "Well, it wasn't a joke to me. So why are you calling me?" They're
Yeah.
saying, "Just don't get so upset, like, next time. Like, don't get so upset. Don't take things so seriously." I was like, "Are you
Oh
fucking
my
kidding me? How about you
god.
fuck off? Like, why did you call me after all these years to tell me that? Like, go fuck off." So, oh my, like, just goes to show you when people insult other people, they're not even thinking.
It's the gaslighting for me.
That's a great way to articulate it because back then I didn't know what gaslighting was. It was just like, "Why are you telling me stupid shit?"
Ugh, I hate that. I'm sorry that happened to you because that's bullshit right there. Like the fuck?
Right? It's BS
Like
all
so
around.
unprofessional.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought it up in the meeting to embarrass that person because that person did it and they probably have friends who know that they did it because they wanted the stupid ass like dumbass giggles that people get from like
From
doing
doing
things like
that.
that.
Yeah, and they didn't think I would bring it up.
Exactly,
I was
right.
like I was like, "Bitch, you noted the wrong person."
Yeah, yes.
And after all those years, you're still thinking about it, so yeah.
Yeah, I hope it tortures them for the rest of their life.
Yeah. So, that
Wow,
was
you
a
live in their
good
mind rent free. I can't believe they called you afterwards.
Me
And
too,
just
I
to
was like, "Why would you do
say,
that?"
literally, if you've like hurt somebody, leave them the fuck alone. Even if you're a better person, which questionable, but even if you think you're a better person now and you want to apologize and stuff, don't. Let me tell you something. What people want to be left alone
Mhm.
after
I
you've done some shit to them.
'Cause I totally forgot about it. I was like, "Oh, hi."
Yeah. Resurfacing traumatic memory.
Right. So in that
Hmm.
moment, I just had to experience it and figure out how I would deal with it in a way that I would feel better about myself.
Yeah.
And I always try to take the high road.
Would
Yeah.
you have changed anything from that, from bringing it up in the meeting? And what happened like after that? Was there like a supervisor amongst you
Oh,
who,
there was a supervisor amongst me, but I talked to her about it before I told her, "Hey, I'm gonna do this." And she said, "Okay, like, I'm sorry that happened to you," but we didn't suss it out. She didn't investigate or
yeah,
anything. So, I don't know what that says about her. I think I told her, like, "Ugh, whatever, like, does it really matter who sent it? Maybe." But in the end, I was like, "Okay, they did it," and, like, I just wanna send out a message, and that's it.
yeah. Good, as you should, because if you don't, they're just gonna keep like doing it to you over and over and over and over again
Yeah,
because
but
they know they can get away with it.
right, but what was really great though is in the meeting, my other coworkers came up to me, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and they're so sweet. 2 of them, I love them so much, actually wrote me a note. They're like, "I'm so sorry that happened, like, you're a great person." They put it in my mailbox. I was like, "Oh my
Oh, you
god."
got some nice mail
Mhm.
afterwards. Fuck yeah.
Mhm. So
That's
that
good.
that was really sweet.
I love that. That's a great. I'm sorry that it happened to you. Like,
Right.
I think good things would have happened to you regardless of that bad thing happening.
Thanks.
But I'm happy that like a good thing came out of it because you made it happen. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, just as people can be mean, people can just be as nice as well or kind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that story because it
Thanks.
has a good ending.
Oh, me too. I almost forgot about that. Because, we usually remember the negative things. It really marks our mind.
Yeah.
It's easier to remember than to forget.
Yes. Yeah. But God, I'm trying to think of another story. Um, well, I'm not trying to think of another story. I'm trying to pick one from my mind.
No.
I've had instances where it's like super a lot of like work related instances where it's like very awkward either on like the lower level or even on the supervisory level where I was a supervisor um but the other supervisors didn't like me for one reason or another and but in this case I'm talking about like a casual outing with coworkers, I suppose you could call it. And I arrived there kind of late. So I think like the 7 or 8 of them were already there for a couple hours. They were at the zoo. And I arrived later because I was doing something. And literally, the whole time I was like texting the contact person who kind of like set it up. And I was like, oh, I'm here at the zoo. Like, where are you? And they're like, oh, we're here. And then I'd walk over there. And if you've ever been to the San Diego Zoo, it's pretty large,
Yes.
you could walk to a place in 5 to 10 minutes.
Or you can ride the
Or you could ride the tram, yeah,
is
or the
that
bus
long?
around it. Um, so I walked over to the place where they said they were, and then I was like, the fuck? I literally don't see them. I would text them again. Oh, where are you? I'm here, but you're not here. Maybe you moved. I'll just go to you. And
Mhm.
they're like, oh yeah, we're here now. I walk over there, they're not there.
Oh my God, they're not even waiting for you.
I know. And I'm all like, can you you need to help me because I'm getting some bad motherfucking intel right now.
Mhm.
And then at one point they're all like, oh, we want to go do this now. And then I'm like, oh my God. I literally was like walking around for an hour
Oh my God.
trying
What
to
the
catch up with them.
fuck?
And I'm like, am I like, what was I supposed to do? Um, anyway, I get there and I'm like, hey, I'm here, blah, blah, blah. And I can't say that we all like knew each other that well because we all started at a certain time. It was also kind of like an internship. So we all started at a certain time and then we all would be finished with the internship at a certain time. So maybe we knew each other for like a month or so, but we don't all work together in the
Mhm.
same space. We all work in different buildings. Um, I get there, have small talk, but I don't know, for some reason it was like very difficult to what's the word? Feel comfortable with them. And I can't say that they were being very warm towards me either.
Yeah, it's such a weird group dynamic when I feel like it's a few people who just wanna do the next thing, like, oh, like, in their head, like, "I don't wanna wait for Carolyn, I just wanna go to see the chimpanzees," or some shit. And then it's some people are, like, thinking, "Well, shouldn't we wait for her?" But no one's gonna say it, or if they do say it, they're not strong enough to convince them to do it. And I'm just like, "What the fuck point is inviting you if you have to search for them for an hour?"
I know it's so like you would think that being like a good host is like a common thing, but there are people out there who think it's normal to leave your friend at a club or ditch your friend at a club.
Oh my god, yes.
And
It's
I'm
so
like,
weird.
when people talk about that or like it happens on like fucking TV or movies, and I'm like, why does this trope keep coming up? Do people actually leave their friend at the club or ditch their friend at the club? Because why the fuck would you do that?
Yeah, it's true. Like people end up getting lost or not even lost. They just leave. They're like, oh, where are they? Oh, okay, let's just leave. Because I lived in PB and I felt like it happened all the time. And I was just lucky to have friends who like we stuck together. Like, all right, we're just leaving together at the end of the night. You know?
Yeah. So this group of people would be the same type of people who would leave their friend at the club. You know what I mean? Like their friend
Right.
could be passed out in the
Oh my
bathroom
god.
And they're all like, where are they? I don't know. We're not going to look. Let's go.
Right.
Anyway, so I can't say they're being very warm or welcoming towards me. And I also was trying to talk to them because duh, I was there. I wanted to hang out with them.
Mhm.
But it was just so fucking awkward. I'm all like, why the hell am I here? They clearly like could care less if I'm here or not. And at one point we were all mid walk and I was all like, hey, it's getting dark and I actually need to go home and paint my room.
Mhm.
So bye. And
Uh-huh.
they're all like, okay. And then I just left. And yeah, so moral of the story is to if people don't wait for you, even though they invited you to things, red flag, you should probably just go.
Mhm. Yep.
Like if it just makes no logical sense. I feel like I don't even need to explain any further.
I agree. Like we don't have to comment that much. It's just like they were shitty,
Mm-hmm.
and what before you even got to them, they're still shitty when you were there.
Yeah.
And I'm
So
happy that you accepted the situation and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna leave because I can, and I'm not having a good time. Fuck y'all.
I know. I wish I could have just said that. I wish I had just said that I
Fuck
wanted
y'all.
to leave or that I'm like, I actually got to go. Bye.
Yeah.
Instead of giving like a stupid ass excuse.
Right. No, totally. I feel you though on in terms of when we were younger giving excuses to leave, but now I feel like we're more old. We're older, so we can just say like we don't have to explain ourselves. Like, okay, I gotta go now. Bye.
Yeah.
And people always want a reason. They're like, why? And I'm like, you don't even care.
Yeah, they don't.
I'm just
They
leaving.
just
Bye.
they don't care. They are
Nosy.
entitled. Uh yeah, I wish that I could have like during the internship thing, I wish I made it awkward for them because they made it awkward for me.
Mm-hmm.
And during that stupid zoo trip, I wish I was just like, I gotta go. Bye. And anybody who acknowledges me.
Right. And then like, once you're out of the zoo, you're like, yes,
Yeah.
freedom.
Yeah. But I don't know. I've been like burnt so many times by like even before those two instances, like there's a really big instance where I was like ostracized. And that was going on for like a whole like year and a half.
Oh, damn.
Fucking full time, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I'm like, and I thought like, oh, if I leave that job, maybe it'll just be better, but it never got better. It was very interesting actually.
that's tough. I feel like we've both had experiences when we were in a very uncomfortable position and not just a one-time thing. It happened for months, for you over a year. So, given your experiences, when do you know or what are the signs to leave?
The signs to leave, I would say when they like start disrespecting you and you will feel the vibes. It took me so long to actually listen to my gut and my vibe because I'm like, oh, maybe this, maybe that. But no, like they are literally doing that to you. You know what I mean? And the gaslighting is strong. Like they'll never say it to your face
Absolutely
because
not.
they're grade A, like people pleasers, manipulators. Like you will never ever have definitive evidence.
Yes, that's how I felt too when I was an RA. There was this one particular other RA who was a very people pleaser, like very nice in front of your face. But knowing him, I was like, he talked a lot of smack about people behind their backs. And I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of thought, all right, well, if he's doing that to other people, like, how do I know he's not doing that to me?
Literally.
Yeah. And I think another sign too that sometimes we overlook or kind of gaslight ourselves is when you're in a conversation and you bring something up and nobody in the group replies back to you or addresses your sentence,
Oh my
that's
god.
hella red flag, bro. Like
Literally,
everyone kind of
yes.
just ignores you. That's when you know, fuck this. Like they do not care about my opinions, because they won't even acknowledge it. That's the very least somebody can do. You know, if like Carolyn and I are in a group with other people, and let's say Carolyn brings up something she did. Hey guys, did you know I did this last week? And it just no one says anything, or they're just like, "Oh, okay." It's just
Yeah,
stonewalling. That's what it is. It's called stonewalling. If someone stonewalls you, get the fuck out.
literally 5,000%. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big one. Oof. Do you think standing up for yourself like helped the situation overall, or was it just like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have, but like, did anything
Oh, I
change
see. Good question.
afterwards?
when I addressed it in the meeting, I think what changed is that they whoever did took me more seriously. Either that and or my perception was like, I don't care anymore. So I don't even want to try to be your friend or like a close coworker to you.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. How did you feel after you left the zoo?
Um, I felt bad for the rest of the day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not gonna lie. Like, I'm sure it would have felt like way worse if I had stayed there.
Mhm.
But the whole time, and that was back in 20, God, when was that? 2018. Um, so about 3-ish years ago. And I guess at that time I was just like, but why, but why, but why? But like I don't ask why anymore because there's only one reason, and the reason is like they literally don't care.
Mhm.
And there isn't, maybe I was just like digging for like a good enough reason to make me feel better,
Mhm.
but there's not a good enough reason.
Right, absolutely. There's not, and that would be still an external validation, trying to see like why it was okay for them to do it when to we had to stop right there and be like, no, it wasn't okay at all for them to do that.
Exactly. So I should have been um coming to terms with the fact that they're just assholes and that's fine.
Mhm.
Instead of being all like, what's wrong with me? Why does this keep happening to me? Blah blah blah, stuff like that.
I think I came to that conclusion of, oh, they're just assholes because it was towards the end of my year of being an RA.
Mhm.
I already knew what everyone was like, and I was just like fed up.
Yeah. I guess the difference is that like during all those times, like the one, I know you shouldn't live your life with regret, but if I were to choose one, my one regret is that like I never ever stood up for myself. Like it would keep
Oh.
happening and I'm like, what if I just like tried harder? And then it would keep happening and I'm like, what if I just tried harder? And then it would keep happening.
Oh, I see. Like harder to gain their acceptance
Yes,
or
like working
mhm.
harder or working overtime, because of whatever sly comments that they made, but they'd always find like a little thing to point out, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and eventually, I mean, again, a lot of lessons are learned the hard way. It's unfortunate. I'm sure I would have learned it
Mhm.
even had I not gone through that experience.
I think what you did was one thing people can do when they feel like they don't belong in a space is just to leave. Like, just
Yeah.
straight up remove yourself from that situation. To go further, once you remove yourself and leave, is to find other people.
Mhm.
And maybe it's limited, in your work, but I feel like you had that supervisor who was, the one that was actually decent to you. If it's in work or in family or friends, go find another person that you feel like you connect with. Or sometimes I felt like when I was, in college was that there was other people who had a feeling they were cool, and then once I actually talked to them, I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're really cool," and I'm so happy I went up to them and said
Mhm.
something.
Yes, there's if you're in a bad situation, it's never going to get better, which
Yeah.
is a bit tough to say, but all that to convince you to just leave.
Mhm, exactly. And even if you go to another person and then they're neutral, maybe during lunch or conversations aren't that great. It's
Mhm.
better than to have a neutral person to talk to than to have somebody who puts you down and makes you feel bad constantly, you know?
Exactly. But all that to say, or we kind of started this conversation already, but what to do when you don't feel like you belong. You leave. Obviously, it's a little awkward when it's a professional situation and you got to stay at your internship so that you can put it on your resume.
Mhm.
Um, or if it's a job, that makes it even more awkward because you need money because capitalism.
Right.
But if you can, you should, once you start getting that feeling, like you really should start just like for another job. I know that's really like privileged and like of me to say, but you should do that. Like the fuck is never gonna get better. And I don't know how anyone could cope with that?
Yeah, because it's like every day and we're spending 8+ hours of our lives at work, and
Yeah.
your coworkers truly matter. The people around you really matter and make an impact on your mental health.
Yep.
Yep.
But something that's always worked for me is that we talked about this a little bit in our episode about creating space. And uh whenever I've like entered a space, like sometimes it turned out okay or sometimes it turned out horribly.
Mhm.
um But if I ever wanted like a place for me to belong, like I've just gone out and made it.
Mhm.
So what does that mean? It's like what Davi said about going up to people and finding a place with those people. And I just mean like a social place where they could feel comfortable and you like actually like each other or enjoy each other's company.
Yes, exactly.
So doing that, and I know anyone who's been to UCSD know it's really hard to make friends. I don't know why. It's a fucking UCSD thing. There's something in the water, I guess.
Mhm.
And going out and finding people and creating your own space, like definitely gives you agency. It works a lot of the time, to be quite honest. Um, when I was in community college, I made my own club, and that was one of like I'm only 25, but so far one of the highlights of my life because it was a really great place, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you were able to like set the expectations and the culture. So it was
Right.
totally inclusive, no bullying allowed or
Yes.
ostracizing people. And I agree too, like you kind of have to get out your comfort zone and not know what to expect. Like the lifelong friends I've made during my RA year were a group of employees that weren't RAs, and
Mm,
that's a little bit weird because usually you kind of stick to your role and you hang out with the people in your same role. But I was like, you know what? They seem cool. They make me laugh from far away. So, or not far away. They make me laugh even though we're not the same role. So I was just like, hey, how are you? What are you doing? Like, I just like asked them, what's your life story? And then it was so worth it.
yeah. That's actually a really funny point because at my workplaces, like I've always made more like friends or connections with people literally outside of my department.
Yes, exactly. See?
Yeah, like the maybe like if I was doing some animal related stuff, like I would be friends with the gardener. Or
Aw,
if I was or at my current job right now, I would say I'm closest to like people not in like the document writing analyst section of work, but like people who are in IT or
mhm.
people who are in like the editing department, you know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
So I think it'll be good to wrap up this podcast with how you know you're in good company.
Okay. So the first thing that comes to mind is that everyone talks to everyone.
Yes.
And that seems simple, but that just shows you everyone kind of has good social skills. They're not leaving anybody out. And that creates a really good, strong bond.
Yeah. For me, I would say you feel better after an interaction with them.
Another thing you can tell if you're in good company is that people ask you about your day and they feel happy for your accomplishments. And they're just curious about you, like, hey, what's going on? What are you up to? Oh, how's your kid?
Mhm.
Even if it's small talk, which I sometimes hate, they still are inquiring about you, and that takes some sort of level of social thought and consideration,
I agree. Like at least they're pretending to care, you know?
right? We're going to wrap up today's episode here. We want to hear from you. Where or with whom do you feel belonging? And what do you do when you feel like you don't belong? Email us at just2asianwomen@gmail.com, DM us on Instagram at just2asianwomen, or comment on our YouTube channel.
And you could find our podcast on Spotify, Anchor FM, and YouTube.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed it, please consider sharing with your friends, your great grandpa, and you'll hear from us again next week. Again, my name is Davi.
And I'm Carolyn, and we're just
Just two
two Asian
Asian
women.
women.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.